SLT අලුත් මෙගා ලයින් කනෙක්ෂන් වලට 50%ක දීවන. තවත් ඔෆර් ගැන දැනගන්න 122 අමතන්න.
Successful first leg. Sri Lanka's first ever satellite Ravana 1 docks at the International Space Station. Barriers to a viable solution. Languishing projects and exponential bonds hindering solutions to the power crisis.
617 projects is pending at CB level. There was a cabinet paper to get a 30 million bond for every megawatt of solar power, ground-mounted solar power installed in the country.
Dangers of the wild. A man killed by a leopard within the Kumana National Park. Mueller's report goes public. Donald Trump wanted the special counsel fired. All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Friday, the 19th of April 2019.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9 on AdaDerana 24, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now it is always a sad ending when the conflict between humans and wildlife come to the surface. The latest incident has taken place yesterday within the Kumana National Park when a leopard killed a labourer who was taking a rest along with his colleagues. The group had been part of some renovation work within the park, and the Department of Wildlife Conservation has temporarily made leopard hotspots within the Kumana National Park off limits for visitors.
There has been an increase in severity of human-wildlife conflict in Sri Lanka over the past few years, with many fatalities being reported from both the sides of humans and wildlife. During early hours of the evening yesterday, a group of labourers engaged in road construction work in Bambaragastalawa in Bambure, near the Kumana National Park, have come under a leopard attack.
We were sitting around when we heard a scream. We saw the leopard holding our colleague by his neck at first, and then the animal stood up with him in its jaws. I tried to stop the leopard by attacking it with one of the tools nearby, but that did nothing to deter the animal as he dragged him like a piece of paper into the woods. I retreated and informed the others of the incident. Wildlife officials arrived an hour and a half later. There were 4 of them with 2 guns, along with a safari driver.
With the help of wildlife officers, other labourers had gone in search of their missing colleague. Even though they found the victim, he was already dead. The leopard hidden in the bushes had attacked the driver of the jeep who accompanied the wildlife officers. According to our correspondent, the driver had been taking photographs of the scene when he came under attack.
They asked us to leave as they wanted to document the scene by taking pictures. We heard a scream, followed by a gunshot. The leopard then came rushing out of the woods and went past us. The other officer with a gun could have shot it, but he didn't. Then the safari driver, who sustained injuries, staggered out of the bush with blood spitting out of his wounds. We managed to rush him to the hospital.
Reacting to the situation, wildlife officials had sprayed rubber bullets to chase the leopard into the wild. The driver, who sustained severe injuries, was rushed to the Pothuwil hospital, following which he was transferred to the Ampara General Hospital for further treatment. The deceased was identified as 48-year-old Selvadure Ravichandran, an area resident of Komar in Pothuwil. Meanwhile, speaking to AdaDerana, Director General of the Department of Wildlife Conservation, MJC Surya Bandara, said that an inquiry have been called with regard to the incident. The particular area and hotspots where leopards wander within the park are now temporarily off limits for tourists.
The US spacecraft Cygnus 1, carrying Sri Lanka's first ever satellite Ravana 1, designed by 2 Sri Lankan students, attached to the International Space Station at 3 p.m. Sri Lankan time today. The satellite is expected to fulfill several missions, including the capture of images of Sri Lanka and its surrounding regions.
Sri Lanka's first satellite Ravana 1 was launched successfully into space yesterday from NASA's Wallops flight facility on Virginia's East Shore. After 36 hours of travel time aboard the Cygnus cargo craft, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration announced on its website today that the spacecraft successfully attached to the International Space Station at around 3 p.m. Sri Lankan time and is currently flying 255 miles above the Indian Ocean just south of Singapore.
Confirm capture point hold per step 8 in 1.102. Station Houston on 2.
Over the pin.
Cygnus will remain at the space station until the 23rd of July, when the spacecraft will depart the station. The spacecraft's arrival brings close to 706,000 pounds of research and supplies to space station. The satellite Ravana 1, which is 1,000 cubic meters in size and weighing 1.1 kilograms, was designed and built at the Kyushu Institute of Technology in Japan by two Sri Lankan students Tarindu Dayaratna and Dulani Chamika. Ravana 1 is expected to orbit 400 kilometers away from Earth, and it will have a minimum lifespan of 1.5 years. It is set to be launched into orbit by the end of May or the outset of June. The satellite is expected to fulfill several missions, including the capture of images of Sri Lanka and its surrounding regions, as well as experiment a software system in designing satellites in place of the hardware system that's already being used.
World Press Freedom Index is now out, with Sri Lanka climbing 5 places to 126. Press freedom has become a sensitive topic, with certain Western powers pointing the finger at the island nation for alleged suppression of media. Sri Lanka has been steadily climbing the index from being placed 141st in 2017.
The annual Press Freedom Index is compiled by Paris-based Reporters Sans Frontières, which ranks 180 countries according to the level of freedom available to journalists. The index boasts of being a snapshot of media freedom based on an evaluation of pluralism, independence of the media, quality of legislative framework and safety of journalists in each country. Only 24% of the 180 countries and territories are classified as good, while Sri Lanka's classification comes under the category difficult situation, which comprises 29% of the countries in the index. The index reads that Sri Lanka climbed to 126th place, jumping 5 positions from last year's 131st place. The island nation is, however, placed above the likes of neighbouring India, Pakistan as well as Singapore. One of the world's supreme powers, China, is also below Sri Lanka in the World Press Freedom Index. Both India and China have slid this year in comparison to where they were placed in last year's index. The United States, meanwhile, has also gone down 3 places to 48th. Norway leads this year's index for the 3rd consecutive year, followed by Finland, Sweden, the Netherlands and Denmark. Turkmenistan, meanwhile, occupies the bottom slot in the World Press Freedom Index.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapakse is confident that people will make a wise decision at the upcoming presidential election, irrespective of the number of candidates or their identity. He touched on the topic when responding to questions raised by media in Nuwara this morning.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapakse arrived at the Sri Muthumariyamman Kovil in Havayaliya, Nuwara this morning.
ඔබතුමලා සහ ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය අතර තියෙන එකඟතාවයකට දෙන්න තියෙනවා.
තාම සාකච්ඡා කරමින් පවතිනවා. ඒ මොන විදිහේ එකඟතාවයක්ද අපි එන්න ඕන කියලා.
එතකොට මේ දවස්වල කතා වුණා ආණ්ඩුමාරුවක් හරි මොනවා හරි පෙපර දේශපාලන දෙයක් විපාකයක්.
ඔව් මං හිතන්නේ එහෙම කුමන්ත්‍රණයක්.
Yes, there was a conspiracy, and since it was revealed, now there is a clash within the United National Party. There seems to be a collapse within their party.
ගැටුමක් තමයි මට පේන විදිහට.
කතා කරන කියලා තියෙනවා සර් මේ 150ක් ගන්න බැරි වෙයි කියලා විපාක කාටද?
නෑ බය වෙන්න එපා අපි ගන්න. නෑ ඔය කොයි අපේක්ෂකයා ආවත් ජනතාව.
Whoever the contestants may be, people in this country are wise. They couldn't even increase the daily wage of plantation workers to 1,000 rupees. During our tenure, we increased their wages by whatever the amount they asked for.
අරන් දෙන්න බැරි වුණානේ අපි ඉන්න කාලේ ඉල්ලුව ගන්න දුන්නා.
ඔබතුමාගේ කාලේ මේ එකම මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙකුට විතරක් කඳුරට වැඩි සැලකිල්ලක් දැක්වුවා කියන චෝදනාවක්.
නෑ මම එහෙම සැලකුවේ නෑ.
That's a lie. I treated everyone well. They still haven't succeeded in opening the Nuwara hospital. The same thing could be said about the Hambantota hospital as well.
හම්බන්තොට ඉස්පිරිතාලෙටත් ඒකයි.
United States Navy ships USNS Millinocket and USS Prudence arrived at Sri Lanka's Hambantota port yesterday to kick off the annual exercise series dubbed the Cooperation Float Readiness and Training, which got underway today. Now, during the visit, they met Commander of the Southern Naval Area, Rear Admiral Kapila Samaravira.
A group of officers from the US Navy ships USNS Millinocket and USS Prudence arrived in Sri Lanka for the Exercise Corporation of Float Readiness and Training 2019 yesterday. They had an audience with Commander of the Southern Naval Area, Rear Admiral Kapila Samaravira, and exchanged views on the annual exercise as well as mementos to signify the importance of the occasion. Corporation of Float Readiness and Training exercise, the US Navy's oldest and longest continually running regional exercise in South Asia and Southeast Asia, strengthens partnership between regional navies and enhances maritime security cooperation throughout the Indo-Pacific. During the week-long exercise in the southern seas, US sailors and Marines joined the Sri Lanka Armed Forces to conduct partnered training focused on building interoperability and strengthening relationships along with sharing best practices. The exercise will offer sailors and Marines a chance to conduct underwater diving sessions, combat life-saving training and practice small boat maneuvers. Navy Seabees will also be working with the Sri Lankan Navy Civil Engineering Branch to renovate an elementary school in the nearby area.
The Chief Inspector of Police, who heads the 119 Police Emergency Centre, alleges that he was attacked by Superintendent of Police. The Chief Inspector is currently admitted at the Colombo South Teaching Hospital in Kalubowila. The police media spokesperson, however, says that there are pending investigations on the purported victim over 2 allegations of death threats.
The Chief Inspector, who heads the 119 Police Emergency Centre in Mirihana, S.A. Jayatilaka, alleges that the Director of the Inspector General's Command Information Centre, Superintendent of Police Amit Gunaratna, attacked him. According to him, the Superintendent, along with 3 other policemen, raced into his office at around 12:30 in the afternoon yesterday while he was on duty. He alleges that he was attacked by the 3 policemen led by the superintendent and he was helpless as no one came to his aid at the time of the alleged attack. That said, he has however recorded the verbal threats levelled against him during the confrontation on his mobile phone. Given the significance of the ranks of officers involved in the incident, AdaDerana contacted the police media spokesperson SP Ruwangunasekara to gain clarity on the incident. He, however, said that there are 2 complaints lodged by 2 other police officers against Chief Inspector. Complaints are lodged by 2 other police officers against Chief Inspector Jayatilaka over death threats levelled against them, and investigations are being conducted.
And with that, we cross over to short commercial break, but before that, we have more local news on the other side, so make sure you stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is AdaDerana 24.
Secretary to the Solar Industries Association, Lakmal Fernando, says that the proposal made by the Minister of Power and Energy, Ravi Karunayaka, to place the 30 million rupee bond for every megawatt of ground-mounted solar power installed in the country is not commercially viable, particularly for small and medium-scale industries engaged in solar power. He went on to say that in order to address the power shortage in the country, it is pivotal to kickstart over 600 projects accounting to 1,550 megawatts, which are currently languishing with the Ceylon Electricity Board. The electricity demands for 2019 was estimated to be about 16,000 gigawatt hours, and the general consensus was that there would be a 5% annual demand growth, around 800 gigawatt hours in the coming years.
According to the Solar Industries Association, daily power cuts cost the island 1 billion rupees per day. It warns that Sri Lanka stands to lose 170 billion rupees per annum in buying emergency power. The association said that this will continue to worsen annually at least until 2025 as the supply-demand gap widens. Experts' estimates indicate 5% annual demand growth, necessitating a cumulative addition of approximately 5,500 gigawatts per hour to the national grid by 2025.
The biggest challenge that we have is there are approximately about 617 projects accounting to about 1,550 megawatts is pending at CB level. So I think our biggest challenge right now is to somehow or the other try and get these 617 projects up and running and give approvals for those 617 projects. And also, recently there was a cabinet paper that was given by the minister to get a 30 million bond for every megawatt of solar power, ground-mounted solar power installed in the country. This is not a commercially viable number for small and medium-scale business people. This is a huge cost in addition to what they have to incur to do the projects. So I think it is government's responsibility to try and remove this barrier to move these projects forward.
Fernando also spoke on the future action the government should take to address the power shortage in the country.
Although a certain work has been done by the government, the biggest challenge that they have is to reduce and curtail all these emergency power and diesel and all the other expensive energy sources and try and get solar as much as possible. I think that has to come in from the very high level of the government. According to the Paris Convention, what we have signed last year, we are bound to get our renewable energy percentage to about 50% by 2025. So if we are to get to this level, we need to start working today, not after 4 or 5 years.
A delegation led by State Minister of Finance Eran Wickramaratne participated at the International Monetary Fund Spring Meetings, which concluded recently in Washington, D.C. In line to the event, the Sri Lanka delegation engaged in a number of discussions with a number of high-ranking IMF and World Bank officials on fiscal and financial sector reforms, project financing and sustainable economic growth and stability. The delegation also signed project agreements with the World Bank for public and private sector agreements. In the meantime, State Minister Wickramaratne took part in a closed-door roundtable discussion at the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. on Sri Lanka-US relations and the prospects for promoting peace, security, trade and investment opportunities in South Asia. The Sri Lanka delegation included Central Bank Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy and Secretary to the Treasury Dr. R.H.S. Samaratunga, among others. Now, the Sri Lanka Meetings Incentive Conferences and Exhibition Tourism market is expected to reach $285 million by 2025. According to the report titled Sri Lanka MICE Tourism Market, Current Trends, Opportunity Growth Potential and Forecast to 2025, compiled by analytical research Cognizance, Sri Lanka is emerging as the fastest growing MICE tourism market. The report, which was recently released, adds that India, Maldives and China are the largest source market for Sri Lanka MICE industry. The Osha Price Index ended 0.05% firmer at 5,606.35 yesterday, with a turnover of 200.3 million rupees. With that, let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan markets performed during the week.
Both bond market and the stock market, most of the market participants remain mostly on the sideline due to the festive season. Amidst overall market witness slow. The bond market, secondary market yield curve shifts slightly upward during the early hours of trading on the back of selling interest witnessed on the mid to long term maturities. In the stock market, those ended on the green for a second consecutive day and mainly on the gain made by HNB and Melstar, and nearly 54% of the turnover derived by Dialog. The turnover recorded nearly 3 weeks low, while a net foreign inflow was witnessed amidst high foreign participation.
Democrats have vowed to continue pursuing Donald Trump over allegations he obstructed justice following the release of a report in Russian meddling in the 2016 election. They want Robert Mueller, the man who collated the report, to publicly testify before Congress about the work he has done. It comes after a redacted version of the document was released yesterday. Trump's legal team has said it completely exonerates the president.
After much anticipation, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report on alleged Russian interference in the 2016 US election is finally out, albeit a redacted version. It says US President Donald Trump believed the appointment of a special counsel to take over the federal probe of Russian interference would spell the end of his presidency. Report says that when then Attorney General Jeff Sessions informed Trump of Mueller's appointment in May 2017, Trump slumped back in his chair and said, quote, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency," unquote. Trump had then asked Sessions, whom he had berated for months for rescuing himself from the Russia probe, how he could have let this happen, also saying that Sessions him down. What's even more explosive is that details of Mueller's investigation showing that Trump tried to impede the probe, raising questions of whether he committed the crime of obstruction of justice. Quoting Sessions, the report says that Trump told Sessions that he was supposed to protect him. The Republican president had bristled at the investigation since taking office in January 2017, belittling Sessions and calling the probe a witch hunt and a hoax. According to the report, a month after the appointment in June 2017, Trump tried to get rid of Mueller. He called White House counsel Don McGahn at home and told him to call Sessions and say that Mueller had conflicts of interest and must be removed. Mueller's report says that McGahn did not carry out the direction, however, deciding that he would resign rather than trigger what he regarded as a potential Saturday night massacre, referring to the Watergate-era firing of key law enforcement officials by President Richard Nixon. 2 days later, the report said the president made another attempt to affect the course of the Russia investigation. He asked his former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski to deliver Sessions a message that he should announce publicly that the investigation was very unfair to Trump.
Distraught employees of grounded jet Airways of India are now seeking intervention from Prime Minister Narendra Modi to save the cash-starved airline. They gathered in large numbers in New Delhi to participate in a protest. Once India's largest private airline, Jet halted all flight operations indefinitely on Wednesday evening after lenders led by State Banks of India declined to extend more funds to keep the carrier going. The carrier, saddled with roughly $1.2 billion of bank debt, has been teetering for weeks after failing to receive a stopgap loan of about $217 million from its lenders as part of a rescue deal agreed in late March. About 800 Jet employees and their families held a march near Parliament House in New Delhi, blaming the government for failing to do anything to rescue the airline. Jet's collapse would be a big blow to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is currently seeking re-election in a weeks-long general election. Modi's critics blame his government for rising unemployment. Well, we are now crossing over to a short commercial break.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is AdaDerana 24.
Minister of Sports Hari Fernando today spoke on some of the controversies stemming from Sri Lanka's squad selection for the beckoning ICC Cricket World Cup. The 15-member squad was announced yesterday. The minister insists that politics played no role in the election process.
Sri Lanka Cricket yesterday announced its 15-member squad for the upcoming ICC Cricket World Cup, scheduled to begin on the 30th of May in UK. Minister of Sports Hari Fernando broke his silence over the selection of the squad, which attracted a whirlwind of comments.
I'm not a professional in this regard, and we've appointed professionals of the subject as selectors. Their recommendations were to select a good team as a whole. It is noteworthy that Dimuth was given the captaincy due to Angelo Matthews declining the offer. Angelo was initially given the captaincy, and I too requested him to consider it, but he refused. The most controversial statement was that Dimuth had not played a single ODI since 2015. Every good player cannot be a good captain, and every good captain cannot become a good player. We wanted a player who can unite the team. Dimuth was able to lead the team to victory against South Africa with a team full of youngsters. Lasith Malinga will never put the country second, and I'm very disappointed that some factions politicise everything. We will feel the effects of Lasith Malinga's absence if he decides not to play, because he is one of the best in the game and a must for Sri Lanka. He, however, has not informed anything officially.
Former Captain Minister Arjuna Ranatunga also expressed his views about the team selection, particularly picking on the lack of experienced players in the squad.
I'm not entirely satisfied with the selection, but we should wish good luck to the players who have been selected for the team. Lack of experienced players can be a major blow to a team. Chandimal especially is a player that should be in the team. But on the other hand, young players have also been given a chance here. They should not heed pressure and perform well for the country, and then I believe we can go a long way in the tournament.
World number 1 Novak Djokovic is out of the Monte Carlo's Masters after suffering a 3-set loss to Daniil Medvedev. Fellow Serb Dusan Lajovic, however, booked a place in the semi-finals, while Rafael Nadal is currently on court taking on Guido Pella in his quarter-final. Let's take a look at yesterday's action at the Masters.
World number 2 Rafael Nadal eased past Grigor Dimitrov of Bulgaria in straight sets to reach the quarter-finals of the Monte Carlo Masters yesterday. The French Open champion, who is aiming for his 4th consecutive title in the Principality, defeated Dimitrov 6-4, 6-1 in 1 hour and 34 minutes. One of yesterday's upsets came in the form of 4th seed Dominic Thiem's exit from the tournament. The Austrian put on a meek performance and went down 6-3, 6-3 to Serbia's Dusan Lajovic. The architect yesterday's other shock was Italy's Fabio Fognini as he beat world number 3 Alexander Zverev in straight sets. The 31-year-old Italian, who is ranked 18th in the world, defeated the German 7-6, 6-1.
And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.